All right. Welcome back, everybody. HSC Podcast number 23. So we've been out for a while. So we'll say we're starting season 2 now. So uh, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, it'll be season 2, episode 1. But this is our 23rd podcast, lucky number 23. After good old Michael Jordan.
Oh yeah,
That
45.
we'll get into that a little bit. We'll talk about the GOAT conversation today. So that's something that we could talk a little bit about. So we got Big Box Steve, you got Fresh Wes back on the mic. So good to have you back, Wes, and of course the Big Smooth Derek.
Always.
And I'm in the comfy chair. Just got my
That's a comfortable
set up.
chair.
Oh man, it's great.
I'd fall asleep in that right now.
I gotta get my headset and my microphone set up, so I'm on the wired right now. But we'll get the full setup going here soon. But this is also my office, so this is what I work in all day.
Nice.
This is the office chair.
You're like, yeah, it's time to take my 15-minute break.
Yep. Just kick back, put the feet up, take my breaks. This is what work is missing, right? They want me to come in the office, like, give me a recliner. I'll come in the office. But no, you get these most uncomfortable office chairs in the world. I swear they try to find the worst chairs they can. It's so you can't be comfortable at work. Is that what's happening? All right, so today's topics, we're going to be all over the place. But of course, big news. You see it everywhere. Man, I can't go on any of my social media. I can't talk to anybody right now that doesn't have an opinion or want to talk about this. So I've had plenty of conversations. I'm sure you guys have heard about it. So we've got the Supreme Court overturning the Roe versus Wade. And so this is just a court case, right? It's not really a constitutional amendment or anything like that. They're just a court case that's setting a precedent. So first of all, before we get into like thoughts, feelings, like there's a huge uproar. So what's this doing right now to the political landscape? What's the effect of this right now on Democrats, Republicans, people of these parties?
Well, it goes to the effect of what everyone was saying when Trump elected 3 officials. The Supreme Court became a political haven now. Instead of being a separate entity that doesn't care about politics, first thing they do is let's go overturn Roe V Wade. And then to hear Clarence Thomas talk, he wants to overturn a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, no, I saw some of that, and that actually is getting a lot of attention too, right? I mean, the left's hitting that hard. So he's talking about gay marriage. He's talking about all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So what does it do, are there Republicans that they're gonna lose Republican voters because of this? Because you got plenty of women on the Republican side, right? Do they now lose some of their voting side, or does it not affect that? How do you think it affects the Republican Party?
Well, that's the interesting thing about this is, I think what most people look at is they're making abortion illegal.
Right.
But what they're really doing is they're making it where the state decides.
Right.
Which then in turn, the people decide, because you vote for who you want in and for what laws you want passed for each state. So that's why some states, like the Bible Belt, already have laws in place that are anti-abortion. States like Washington, California, and Oregon will never have that.
Right.
So it kind of comes down to now it's putting the power in the states other than putting in power into the nation, which is this topic, I don't want to talk about this topic in particular. I'm talking about the whole ideal of it, because it's putting checks and balances in, because then you can have New York, California Texas for to control the whole United States.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely the bigger states, have a lot of say when it comes to, voting and electoral college, things like that. What's interesting is, when you talk about that, is the first thing is a lot of people I see complaining about it don't even understand that it's just really now the state is in control of it, right? And yeah, there's states that are definitely going to be affected, in a way that Texas, for example, like you already knew if that got overturned, Texas instantly already had the heartbeat bill, right? So, they're ready to go for that, what do you think about it? Wes, what do you think about the states having control? Like, does that make more sense than there being some type of amendment or actual, federal law for abortion? Does it make more sense that each state decides?
Well, the legality of what they did, how they came up with Roe, what I hear, because when it passed back in the 70s, you had a Republican president. You pretty much had a Republican control, and they brought up a privacy issue. Like, the reason why it passed is basically they came down to like a constitutional right for privacy. But honestly, that doesn't really hold much water, because privacy really isn't a federal, I mean, it's not a natural right in a sense, because if everybody had privacy, you're going to open up a Pandora's box of criminals. Like, hey, you can't search my house if someone's missing because I have the right to privacy. It's not the same thing as your natural rights. The problem that I see with the whole ruling right now is, life can't be determined at the state level, in a sense. It's something that's falls under your natural right, and it's a slippery slope when it comes to,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna give power to the states to determine what life is, and that's not really, doesn't fall under the 10th Amendment, which the 10th Amendment has to do with basically leaving certain things up to the states to determine. I just don't see life as one of those things. Privacy, of course, because privacy can be determined by the states just based on, certain conditions. Some states are going to be different than others, but yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one.
It's kind of loosely tied to the 14th Amendment as far as when they first made that ruling, right? The original ruling, the 14th Amendment, and talking about, privacy and things like that. That was a factor in that. But, again, you're still talking about a court case, right? It's not really an actual amendment. It's not really anything.
So how this got brought to them is the Dobbs case in Mississippi, right? Which I haven't looked at it yet, so it's hard to really say does anybody know about the Dobbs case, how it got brought to the Supreme Court? And that's how this ruling came down. I haven't researched it myself, but that's how this all happened.
Yeah, it's unless you really dig into that case itself, like you just look at how it came about, you'd have to look into the case more, but
yeah. Until I looked into that, I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about it extensively until you actually knew the legality. Now, I have a lawyer friend, and he's helping me with some copyright stuff. He's actually telling me how to buy licenses for, and we'll talk about this, in a couple of weeks when, we talk about buying rights to songs and rights to clips. And he's totally on the state side. He's like, it should go back to the states. And I've listened to him for about an hour or so, and he talked about it. And I understand the argument, but you kind of have to look into how this state got brought to the Supreme Court, before, you know.
So is it better? Is it better to have the government as a federal agency have the last say or the last word, or is it better to have a state? And what's the difference? Like either way, you're being
The,
told what to do by a government entity.
Here's the problem. Of course, it's the state, because you want to depend more on your locales for everything, because they know better than the state, than the federal government, because they're just, they're not directly involved and they don't understand the problems. Just like the homeless crisis that we have here where we live. They don't know what's going on. The only way you're going to deal with it is dealing with, our local leaders and dealing with, legislators. The thing about this issue is life cannot be determined by the states. It cannot. One state, Rhode Island, has a different view of life than Texas. And the problem is it's kind of a clusterfuck here.
But then you still can't have the federal government also can't determine life either.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's like either way, it's the bad or the bad, right?
There is the Declaration of Independence, and that determines a lot. And that's that's our federal government. There's not much you can,
I think we were more founded on states' rights than the whole federal government, though.
Well, of course, but there are natural rights. There are natural rights that it doesn't matter your opinion in any state. There are fundamental rights that cannot be violated based on the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. That's all there's to it. And when you start saying, well, one state can determine what life is versus another state, it's. But
then if you're a person in Montana,
but here's the thing: is in my opinion, in the next year or two, someone's going to come back at it with that type of argument.
It's going to get overturned again.
Yes, it's going to get overturned again. It is. So I think everybody's very upset. Protests are all over the place. I think everybody needs to take a breath. I don't think it's cold water for very long. I think it will be overturned again, because the case is going to come back and they're going to use civil rights. They're going to use natural rights, and they're going to use something probably called special rights, which doesn't exist in the Constitution. But honestly, how many people in the Supreme Court are true constructionists? Like, we're going to do everything that the Constitution says. Like, there's a few justices like that. But when you actually think about it, like a woman carrying a child, man, his natural right, a man doesn't do that. They're going to go into all that stuff. They're going to go into something called special rights. And that's why I think it's not going to hold water.
Yeah, it's the reason that this one is tough is it affects, largely just that one group of people. So where you take, say, like any of the amendments, or, take your constitutional rights, that's written for all people. All people are created equal, right? Now you're talking about something that really is specifically to do with one group. And now you have to try to decide how to make laws based on that. And then at a state level, there's a lot of separation. It's like what, 22 to 28 or so, which 22 are kind of in favor of, pro-life, and the other 28 are probably going to be a pro-choice states. So you're almost 50-50. You're pretty close to a split in states as far as.
That's why it's hard for the federal government to come down and say this is this, because it isn't a huge majority.
No, it's not.
And the issue also, the proponents of the pro-life are going to say it is more than one person affected, because there is a fetus in there that has a heartbeat. And that will be, and I can just imagine the people freaking out going, oh, you're pro-life because you don't want guns anymore, but then you want to choose to have abortions be illegal. That's going to come out. I guarantee someone's going to come out with that
It's
argument.
already came out. They're already talking about it.
Well,
And they're
now
gonna use that argument
you got
because
the
they ruled on the Second Amendment a couple weeks ago, and they said, you know what, the states don't have that right, but they have a right here. That's
But
the problem.
now you have the people on the right coming out and saying, hey, well, you know, you were saying my body, my choice, you know, but you weren't saying that with COVID, you know, COVID mandates and vaccines and things like that. So now they're coming with that argument saying, because a lot of the people, to be honest with you, that were pro COVID were left, right? You know, most people that were against COVID were definitely conservative or right for the most part. But so those people are saying, look, it wasn't my body, my choice with COVID, but now you're saying my body, my choice with abortion. And so they're throwing that argument out. You see that, I've seen that everywhere, right? And then like what you said, you know, then you got the other side doing the same thing with guns and saying, you know, you're pro-life, but you want guns to be out there, which take people's lives.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna argue back and forth. It's a mess, and it's created a big separation again, you know, and it's interesting timing, you know, with midterms coming up as well. I'm just wondering, you know, how is this going to affect the parties individually? You know, are there women out there who are conservative historically, but something like this maybe pushes them, you know, to a more liberal or a left side? And so you don't know how that's going to affect long-term politics.
The thing is, you know, everybody, I mean, you know, I was taught by my family, it's like, you know, you don't have to share who you vote for, right? So even though you have a conservative woman or someone that's traditionally voted Republican, and maybe she's more of a moderate, maybe she's a Trump supporter or whatever, and she voted not based on the 30 state plan, which that was all about, you know, basically going through churches and saying, you know what, we're gonna use we'll turn this conservative Christians, evangelical Christians, and we're gonna buy votes that way. Not everybody's like that. Not every woman's like that either. So they might find they might feel that this is infringing on their basic rights about, you know, controlling, you know, they feel like that, you know, they want to start going into contraceptives. That's the next thing. It's like, okay, you're gonna start messing around with contraceptives. What are you gonna say? You know, women can't, you know, what do you want? What do you want everybody to do here? It's like, you want to get involved in bedroom politics in this state? How many more problems can we even make up at this point? And we got some serious fucking problems. We're going to talk about bedroom politics.
People, they want to get involved. Out of your mind. They want to get involved in everything, and it's, you know, they're definitely have their hand. You know, the government has more control ever, and wants even more control as we go forward. Yeah. Not just of your life, of your money, you know, of everything. You know, so it's getting to be a mess for sure. And so we'll see what's next, you know, right? There'll be something around the corner. It seems like every month or every couple of weeks there's this new huge thing, you know, and I think guns are probably next.
In Ukraine, that's still going on, but no one's talking about it.
Yeah. When's the last time you saw anything about Ukraine, right?
Hold on. The whole World War III thing, that's still going on, right?
Yeah. You know, there's a war, right?
Yeah. Well, no, it's the bluster about that too, because that's another propaganda thing, because, you know, Russians love propaganda and they love to scare everybody. You know, you have people within, you know, Putin's government talking about, oh yeah, we're willing to launch nukes, you know, at the West. It's like, really? How do you think that's going to work out for you, dude? How many cities? Like you guys
Doesn't
got
work out well
3
for
cities.
anybody.
You guys got 3 cities. All right. Good luck there. Go ahead.
Well,
You know, it's
yeah.
like, and they sit there, and it's every week it comes out in the wires that, well, yeah, we're talking about World War III and nuclear war. It's like, but now we got to deal with this stuff, dude. You got to deal with contraceptives. You know, you got real enemies out there. We have real people that are very bad. They're very evil.
You don't want anybody. We don't want anybody launching nukes, dude.
And we're gonna worry about something that was fought 50 years ago. I mean, before any of us were alive. All this shit, and that's why I'm not like, until I start looking at Dobbs' case and all this stuff, I don't really know a lot about it. But I'm just saying, kind of off the top of my head, I mean, Break, you're gonna run into some problems here, guaranteed. This is not gonna end up. This is not gonna end up well.
So on the lighter side, Golden State beats Boston, wins another championship. So how do you guys feel about this? And I just want to talk about this topic real quick. Clay, Steph Curry, best duo ever. The 2 best shooters ever. Best dynasty in Golden State ever. Like I'm seeing all this stuff, and I see, Derek instantly, you like shake your head.
It's all people that are like 20 years old.
Right. Maybe not all, but I do kind of feel like, because it's in the now, like is that why it's getting more of this attention, or is that why this is coming up? Because there's dynasties in the NBA forever, right? They go back, oldest time. Yeah, right.
I mean, Bill Russell won 11 champ. I mean, come on, that's a dynasty. And I get what was going on back then, but even the Bulls, they won 6 and 8 years.
Right.
That's a dynasty.
And Jordan Pippen, that's a pretty good duo, right? Like,
yes,
you're gonna put Clay and Steph Curry against Jordan Pippen?
Well, not only that, Clay didn't have the best series ever.
No,
he did
still
not
hurt.
Of course, not as bad as Draymond Green. I mean, he until the 6th game, and he played very well in the 6th game. But Clay's still recovering from, he's not quite back to 100%. But Steph Curry in Game 4, that was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, and we sit there and we talk about, all right, well, we kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago about top 10, and Steph, I still think he's been underrated to a certain extent in this fact. It's all about putting the ball in the hoop.
Right.
And in Game 4, he could not miss. I mean, it wasn't just hitting threes. I mean, he's like doing runners. He's like, shooting mid-range. Like, okay, you're gonna sit there, you're gonna come at me, you're gonna rush me on the 3-point line. I'll just go shoot a mid-range, or you're gonna double team me. I'm gonna hit the over. I mean, he's all about putting the ball in the hoop, and that's the objective of the game. And I love Jordan, I love Kobe, but at the same point, dude, this just not a very big dude.
Yeah,
and he just puts the ball in the basket at a pretty high rate.
I'm not going to diminish Steph, because I do have him in my top 10. But what you're just saying is that's Reggie Miller.
I mean, it's a lot like Reggie.
I mean, Reggie Miller, if he put Reggie Miller with Golden State right now, don't you think Reggie Miller did the exact same thing? He ran around a bunch, got wide open, shot and made a basket. He's basically Reggie Miller.
I mean, that's valid. So how about, let's just talk about him as a shooter, right? Because we know there's things that Curry can't do as an all-around player, right? Not that he can't do it, he's just not going to do it at the highest level, to be, in my opinion.
Also the rules are different too. That's why Reggie wasn't as successful. Because, hey, rules are a lot more different. I mean, Steph probably wouldn't have done so well in the 90s. But
Reggie would kill it these days, because he's a great free throw shooter too, and he would have been at the line a bunch. But just talking about Steph for a second here, because the fact that somebody had the top 10 shooters list and had Steph 1 and Klay Thompson 2, first of all, was the most ridiculous.
Larry Bird was 7.
Yeah, I know. But still, Klay Thompson at 2. Like, so is there an argument for Steph though as number 1 at just a shooter? So if you say one of the best shooters of all time, do you rank Steph in the top 5, top 3, top 1? Like, how is he rated?
I would go top 3 because it's hard because of the rules now, but and the way things are, because Larry Bird wasn't shooting because today's game is all about the 3-point shot.
Right.
If Larry Bird was playing right now, what would his numbers be? So I'd have to put Bird and Steph like 1, 2. Either I can't really say who's better because it's just 2 generations. But I mean, dude, look at Bird in the 3-point contest.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing is and people don't understand how great Bird is. And it's even like me, even growing up in that time, because we didn't have internet and stuff, how he'll just go out and be like, I feel like scoring 40 points with my left hand. I'm just gonna use my left hand today.
Right. Yeah.
Saving my right for the Lakers.
That was against Portland too.
Yeah. Put up 40 points on the Blazers.
Left-handed.
Of course it's the Blazers. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. But he even did like whole stuff like he was being guarded by somebody and we go, I'm gonna juke you left, go right, step back, shoot this, hit it off the backboard, go in. And then he'd do it right in front of the dude's face.
Yeah.
That right there, that means how great of a shooter you are, that you could say, this is what's going to happen
right
while someone's guarding you. And they still couldn't stop you.
Yeah. And he was facing a different type of defense for sure. The offense was definitely different. He had to create some of his shots a lot of times. It wasn't a lot of these. Even Reggie Miller had the advantage of coming off screens all the time. These set shot plays. You watch Bird, and Bird created a lot of his own shots. And that's tough to do. I don't care what era you're playing in. It's hard to go out there and just create shots against good defenders. So it is definitely hard for me to put Curry above Bird. I think Bird's there. But what about guys when you just talk pure shooters? You've got the Steph Currys. I mean, I'm not the Steph Currys, but the Reggie Millers. The guys out Drazen Petrovic. Guys like that who were real just pure shooters.
Durant.
Yeah, Durant. He's pure shooter, right?
So
is Steph number 1 on your list, Wes? As far as pure shooters,
all time.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, I've watched a lot more football when I was younger than basketball, or my memory, like jogging my memory and really looking at things. But from what I can see, Steph's number 1 to me. From what I mean, like I said, he's changed the game so much, and kind of like Jordan did too, but in a bad way, because like back in the 90s and 2000s, like, oh, everybody wants to be Jordan. Well, it kind of hurt the game, because honestly, basketball, it's a team sport. It's not about one guy. It's not even about 2 guys. It's about 5 guys. And I used to love watching people. I used to like watching their strategy. There used to be strategy in basketball. I mean, just you watch March Madness.
Yeah.
I love watching the 4 corners, man. I mean, I love watching smaller teams, like teams that should lose to more athletic teams. I like to see that competition. You don't see that anymore. Everyone plays the same way. They did it, Jordan. Everyone's trying to copy Jordan. Now everyone's trying to copy Steph. So I'm going to shoot it from basically half court. And these people aren't Steph Curry. I mean, he's pretty consistent. Steph's number 1 in my book, but Kevin Durant, that's a tough one, because Kevin Durant he has one of the best. I mean, I think Kevin Durant honestly could develop a hook shot. Later in his career, when it's like, hey, I'm getting older. He's 34. In a couple of years, he'll develop a hook shot. He could do a sky hook. Who's going to block that?
Yeah,
He has a 7'7" wingspan.
Yeah, he's got the height and the fluidity in his game, the way he pulls up off the dribble. He's one of the purest shooters off the dribble you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Come to Portland, Durant. Come to Portland.
I mean, it's almost impossible to stop him when he does that. When he's got a little dribble going, because you can't pull up as fast as him because he knows when he's gonna pull up. And he's 6'10", and so now it's like good luck, and stopping that. So Durant's a tough one too. A tough guard, great shooter. Had obviously some injury problems, which I think has hindered him a little bit.
Yeah, but Steph's step back. I mean, when he does that step back, and he just shoots from the hip. I mean, that's just. I mean, how do you even perfect that?
Yeah, but how would he have done in the 80s and 90s?
Well, that's the thing that's why it's so hard to even create a list, because number one, there are different rules. He wouldn't have done as well. That's all there's to it. They're gonna check him.
You never know, though.
They're gonna they're gonna be all over him. It was a different game.
Yeah, I think generational. When you talk about different decades, it's really hard to make comparisons. You really got to look at like what they're doing right now in this time. And I saw another thing where they're talking about, oh, look at all these players right now. They would dominate in the 80s and 90s, and it's like they got Harden on there, and they got basically the all-stars, people on the all-stars this year, and it's like no, they wouldn't. You're gonna dominate if in your era, or you're not. And so and then you'd say, well, all these guys would be in the GOAT conversations they played in the 80s and 90s. It's like, no, they wouldn't.
Well, just think about this. If Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and Michael Jordan played nowadays, how much better they would be because of all the advances in technology and everything.
Right.
It's like the 70s. They talk about, Kenny Stabler smoking on the sidelines. What happens if Kenny Stabler's now and his like the diet and everything, and he's Tom Brady as stuff, right? I mean,
yeah.
Oh, dude, that's another thing too. Is Stabler. I mean, he's the first quarterback to go to 5 conference championship games. 5 in a row. And it took the 5th one from him to win the Super Bowl. But
so he had a life.
he had a lifestyle that was a little bit different than most people's. I've heard so many stories. He partied on Saturday and played on Sunday, and they won consistently.
Well, Jordan did that too, though, right?
Right. Jordan be gambling all night.
Well, that's but
50.
But here's the thing. I mean, yeah, that's Jordan. I mean, Jordan's a different. Jordan's probably, and you guys, I can't think of another person that built his body, built himself into
Jordan rules.
But was he really that great coming out of high school? I mean, was he like a Kobe? Was he like a LeBron?
Well, it's hard to say because they didn't have the internet and everything like that.
Well,
he went to North Carolina.
We've all watched him at North. We all watched North Carolina. We've seen enough North Carolina, games and old footage. And then even when he started with the Bulls, it's like he built himself into the greatest player ever. When he was a man, I'm not talking about kid. I mean, it's not work. Tiger Woods discussion is not fair because he started playing golf when he was 2. I mean, of course, he's going to be great. But Jordan built himself into that, mentally and physically.
That's why I feel like with LeBron, and if we were going to do our top 10, I have Jordan 1, LeBron 2. So I don't hate LeBron. I just feel like with Jordan, he had adversity. He had the Pistons, he had the Celtics, and they beat him up. and he had to learn how to overcome that.
Yeah.
Where with LeBron, and it's not his fault, but they catered the game to him. Like, you can't touch him going down the lane.
No,
And
he could throw the shoulder, right? He throw a shoulder and dunk it on you, and that's not a foul. Which, I mean, you could go either way on that. I mean, sorry, he's a big dude. What are you gonna do? I mean,
so
it's like
he's never had to face the adversity that Jordan did. And I don't want to say he is the most physically gifted player ever.
Oh,
no doubt about that. But he's never had to elevate his game the way Jordan did. It was kind of like it came easy to him because he was so physically gifted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was ridiculous even in high school. He was very athletic, but he was also a very good player. He had a lot of basketball skills since high school, even before that, I'm sure. But
games are on TV.
He came into the NBA again already a step ahead of everybody else as far as his athletic ability. His overall game was great already. There's some things where LeBron's done really well. He developed into a very good passer, especially since when he came to the league. He wasn't a great passer, he's gotten a lot of assists. His career assists are off the chart. He leads, I think, the NBA all time in assists in the playoffs, so LeBron's done a lot of good things. So when you talk about that top list, so if you're saying your top 10, Derek, is Jordan 1, LeBron 2, if you're talking about the GOAT conversation, does that mean you're taking Jordan as the greatest of all time if you got to choose?
Oh, definitely. Easy. I mean, first off, everyone's so revisionist history now because they're like, well, Jordan had Pippen.
Right.
And I'm like, Pippen was not Pippen unless Jordan made Pippen. And right now, Pippen's all whining and crying, but Jordan made him. Jordan made Horace Grant. I mean, come on. They're like, oh, LeBron, who took the teams LeBron was playing in the East against the East were horrible.
Yeah.
No doubt he made it to the finals. He was playing teams below 500 all the time.
That's true.
Well, Jordan had to go through the Knicks, the Pacers, the Celtics, the Pistons, the Cavs, the Hawks. All these teams had really good players.
Yeah. And LeBron didn't win until he had Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
and then he went back to Cleveland when he had Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving.
Right, exactly. So it's not like he won with trash ever.
Right.
Like he always
and then
had
his
good
third
players,
one he had to get
all-stars.
Anthony Davis.
Right. And then he has AD and him. So there is no doubt that there's no case where LeBron is doing it by himself, because you just look at statistically who he had when he won championships. Those are as good as any of the other players that anybody else has when you call a big two or a big three or whatever you want to call it. So Jordan's top for your list. Wes, what do you got? Who's top of your list?
It's I mean, it's no doubt it's Jordan. I mean, of course, I'm not a LeBron fan, but I respect, what he's done. I mean, he's number 2 to me. But I'm partial to Kobe. He's up there. I mean, of course, Kareem, I think is 3, but I think, I put Kobe top 5, and whether you put him at 4 or 5.
Yeah, it's tough because when you start thinking about some of these players like the Kareems, the Birds, the Magics, you go Wilt Chamberlain, Tim Duncan. Yeah, Tim Duncan. I mean, gets no respect. He's the Rodney Dangerfield.
They're
Shaq.
But that's the thing. That's why it's hard with basketball is these are all different players. I mean, we're talking Magic, and if we talk about the big 3, we talk about Jordan, LeBron, and we talk about Kareem. Okay, let's talk about 4. Well, who's 4?
Magic.
Look at Magic.
Birds 5.
Birds 5. Okay. Let's talk about Tim Duncan. Let's talk
Right.
about Kobe.
You
Let's
know,
talk
Duncan
about-
in your top 5.
and it's but see, these are all different players. I mean, they're in the, even a Steph Curry, people are going to be talking, you're going to have younger people talking, saying, in 10 years, oh, she's top 10, he's top 7. We don't know how more championships Steph's going to win with that team. They should win a couple more with that team. That's all there's to it.
Well, I mean, who's not in the top 10 discussion, and I think one of the big reasons is because he never won a championship, is Barkley.
Karl Malone, Barkley.
Karl Malone.
You got a lot of guys out there like that.
But here's the thing is, who you guys have not mentioned at all? And he's almost like Babe Ruth. It's Wilt Chamberlain.
Well, I brought him up. I said, guys like Wilt. Yeah, it's like, we're not even talking about the Wilts or the Bill Russells. Or the Moses Malone or the Oscar Robertsons. I mean, you think about some of these guys and what they did, and some of them could be championships. The others, like Big O, is statistically like who can do what he's done. Well,
there you go. Here you go. Best duos ever. And you were talking Clay and Steph. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson.
Right.
Or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson.
Because Kareem was really young when he played with Oscar.
Yeah, they won a championship though.
Yeah, they did.
Well, and Oscar's old too.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about there's a couple people on ESPN.
Jerry West Chamberlain.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So,
I mean, okay. There's Jerry West. I mean, the only finals MVP on a losing team, Jerry West. It's like.
Well, I mean, he's literally the logo.
He is the logo. Yeah. It's like.
I would even go Willis Reed, Walt Frazier over Clay and Steph.
That's tough. Well, I think so. I think, and I don't think Clay's a bad player. I just think he gets too much credit in that duo. I think he holds the duo down, to be honest with you. Like I think he's
a really good defender when he's healthy, but he hasn't been healthy in 3 years.
Yeah, he's a pretty good defender, and he's a good shooter. He's just not. He doesn't bring as much consistency, especially because he's hurt. He's been hurt, But I can't call them a top duo. I mean, Jordan Pippen obviously is one of the best duos out there. What else competes with that? I mean,
Magic Kareem.
Yeah, that was my thought. I mean, it's basketball. Like, if we're talking football, I can go back to the late 60s, and we can start talking about it. It's like, even I watched a lot of Lakers were my favorite team growing up, and watching all those Celtics. I remember those finals, but you don't remember the details of everything. Then I watched the old games. It's like, dude, talk about going up and down the court. I mean, it was like no tomorrow. Like, it was just like, it was intense. And then Chicago was such a different beast because they'd slow the game down and they just kind of wear you down. And you Jordan's going to beat you in the end. So I remember that more vividly, of course, than the 80s. I don't even know the 70s. I can't even talk about Oscar Robertson. I don't know much about
the 60s, I think. Even.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but I watched so much of Kobe, and maybe that's why I'm a little more partial. Even Bird, I'm like, Bird's awesome, but it's like, I grew up with Kobe, and he was an assassin.
Yeah, Kobe doesn't get a lot of respect. I don't think that he deserved. I think part of it because he played with Shaq and got some of his rings. And I think
Kobe, there's a duo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about Shaq Kobe. I mean, that's an incredible duo, but Kobe himself doesn't get a lot of recognition for as good. He's a really good player. I'd put him in my top 5. I do. I respect his game so much because he's a clutch player. Like he's the guy you want to have the ball for the last shot, you know.
So Steve, who is your top 5?
You know, I mean, it's a hard one. Like I'd have to actually sit down and put it out, but just off the top of my head, you know, Jordan is my GOAT. You know, I can't ever not pick Jordan as number 1. I really have a hard time not putting LeBron at 2, but I really think Kareem is my number 2, just because, you know, Kareem did so much for the game, but also played at the highest level for a long time, you know. And so when I look at that, I think Kareem would be my number 2. And I know this is shocking for some people, and a lot of people don't agree with this, but I put Bird as my 3rd because Bird could do so much. And if Bird really applied himself, he was unstoppable, you know. When Bird wanted to do something, and he did a lot, you know, and he had a great career. So I think Bird's up there as well. And then LeBron, and then Kobe. So that's what I would go with my top 5.
So Kobe over Magic, huh?
Yeah, I think Magic's close with him, you know, but I think Kobe, for me, it was just he just does more. You know, he's a great player.
That's tough. I mean, yeah,
because Wes should know, because of Showtime, that was Magic. It wasn't Kareem. Kareem was on his Magic kind of carried Kareem towards the end of his career
because he was already been playing 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I think didn't Magic get Kareem 2 or 3 more rings though?
Yeah, and you know, Showtime though was a great team though too.
Right, but so was the Celtics, and they beat the Celtics a bunch.
Yeah,
because that's the thing is, Magic always beat Bird pretty much. College, I mean, granted, I mean, Michigan State to what?
Right, Indiana State.
Indiana State, but
yeah, I think, that's a good comparison.
I think they lost. What year was that? They lost one. Bird beat Magic one time. I don't know if it's 86. It was, or you know, he beat him once in the finals, but the rest of the times, you know, I think Bird won three titles.
He was also a 3-time MVP.
Yeah. And Magic won 5 and lost 5. So I mean, he went to 10. I mean, Magic went to 10 finals, and he split them. You know, but he had a lot of competition. It wasn't so much like, I mean, LeBron had, I guess, I mean, the Spurs. The first one of them to the Mavericks, that's all on him. They should have lost that. But they were still gelling as a team. But they came out cocky, like, oh yeah, we're gonna beat everyone. We're gonna win 7 titles. Like, really?
Not 1, not 2, not 3.
Yeah, we're gonna beat this. And honestly, I guarantee that motivated Spurs. They're like, okay, guys, all right, we'll see how you guys do against us. And you know, they went to war. Those some great finals. Like that 2013 finals, that was a great finals. You know, and LeBron, that's where he earned a lot of cred right there, is, you know, scoring 36 points in a game 7. I mean, Jordan never did it because he never made it to a game 7. But still, I mean, game 7. I remember watching that game. I'm like, all right, LeBron, man. Like, you know, you're not just a facilitator. You're not a Magic / Jordan. Hey, you know what? You're clutch, man. Congratulations. You deserve it. And the next year, he got his ass whooped by the Spurs. Like, just and that ended the whole idea. Oh, we're gonna win 7 titles. Like, no, you're not.
That's the thing is, LeBron kind of gets fickle, and then he leaves places.
Yeah.
But that's where I get with that is also my train of thought now. But yeah, like, well, the Jordan, he had to, like, the Knicks would take everyone, like, they show pictures of like Jordan being guarded by, you know, Craig Elo,
right,
or
Hersey Hawkins, and
they're like,
Brian Russell.
Yeah, like in the finals or whatever. And I'm
Right.
like, yeah, it's like, but yeah, so maybe the Utah Jazz weren't the second best team in the NBA, but he had to go through the second and third and fourth best teams in the East.
Right.
Because being a
Well,
Knicks fan, it's ingrained in my brain how Jordan screwed me over so many times. Because the Knicks were the one team that played him the toughest each year, but never won.
well, and
Those were
there was
brutal.
never just one person guarding Jordan anyway. That's why I think it's ridiculous about those memes. Like, oh, that's the person listed as shooting guard against him, right? That's not the person guarding him. Like, their whole team is guarding him. You know, they're double, triple teaming him constantly. You know,
Well,
he's
but
drawing
see, that
help
was
every single time.
also the beauty of you know, I remember those series in the finals, and that's what I remember vividly, because it's like Jordan already had it planned out what he was going to do before he did it. And that's what these players don't understand anymore. They run around, of course, they're a lot better athletes, but he did everything. There was not a lot of wasted motion with Jordan. And a lot of that was Phil Jackson. I understand that, but they collaborated on that. That was both of them. It wasn't just Phil, it was Jordan too. It was like playing chess on the basketball court, you know? And
Well, the triangle
Jordan,
offense though it was revolutionary. You know, I mean, not really revolutionary, but it was just nobody else was doing it, and it was a great offense.
Tex
Yeah.
winner.
Yeah, yeah. So there is a lot to be said for that offense they're running, but obviously, you know, you can't you don't win all that without Jordan. So Jordan's really the facilitator of it all.
yeah, not everybody can run that. I mean, that's not going to work all the time in just anybody running that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Jordan's ability, Jordan's mind. He knows when to dart to the basket. He knows when to pull back and pull up a fadeaway J, or kick it over to Steve Kerr to win the game. And that, okay. So one I was going to say this earlier. Remember the Last Dance, one of the episodes they talked about Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
And it's after Jordan lost to Orlando. Like, you know, he comes back, he loses to Orlando, right? And he's pretty upset about it. They're in practice. And he doesn't respect a lot of these new guys. He just comes back and like, okay, who's this Steve Kerr guy? And he punches Steve Kerr in the face. Remember that story?
Yeah.
And Phil Jackson kicks him out of practice, right? And this is Jordan taught. He admits this. He's like, yeah, he just booted me out of practice. And he thought to I thought to myself, I punched the smallest dude on the team. I punched him in the face. So he calls up Steve, he's like, hey, dude, he's like, sorry. But, you know, just to admit that, you know, that's when you know you're great. When you can sit there and get on and admit mistakes like that, you know. Jordan's not a bad dude.
He just wants to win.
Yeah, he's a winner. He's a champion. And there's a lot these young guys can learn from just watching that series. It's an amazing series.
Yeah, it was really good.
If you want to win in life, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be sales, it could be anything. People need to watch that series. It's great. You know?
Yeah, it's really good series. And I think it talks a lot. Jordan opens up about a lot of stuff, and then of course the teammates do, and talks a lot about that. That, you know, the fire that Jordan has, the work ethic that he has, it's not just young people that don't have it. It's just like most people, nobody has that, you know, and that's why he's considered the greatest of all time, you know, by most people. It's really hard to develop that level of fire and dedication and tenacity, and just that work ethic that he had, for anybody to do. Like that's the difference between him and LeBron, in my opinion. Even if LeBron had that, and you don't know what his work ethic is, you know, because it's not as advertised as right. much as Jordan's, but I just gotta think that if he had the competitive fire that Jordan had, there would be no question. Like LeBron would easily be the GOAT.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. I think that is what the difference is LeBron is the most gifted athlete ever in it, basketball. Maybe Wilt, because he was
Right.
crazy.
At his
But-
time.
Yes. But yeah, if he had the fire that Jordan had and the work ethic, he should be out there shooting threes like Steph Curry.
Right.
But he never really wanted to learn that because he doesn't need to, because he could just drive to the basket and no one cares.
Yeah.
He never really had to
that,
change his game.
that is a little bit of weakness in his game. This is 3-point shot. It's gotten a little better. Like I when they won the finals here in the bubble, I was like, okay, all right, you shoot better. You're getting better, but you weren't very good in the first place. But
he's a decent 3-point shooter. I think he's got a like
It's not
36,
better.
37% career average or something like that. I mean,
Well, that's probably because everyone leaves him wide open because they're
right.
like, nah, he's not gonna-
yeah,
Yeah. So he's made his fair share. So real quick, as we finish up here, I wanted to talk about the NCAA real quick. You guys had mentioned UCLA and USC possibly going to the Big Ten, right?
Not possibly.
Official.
It's official.
It's official now.
2024.
So,
They are leaving. The Big Ten accepted their application. They're
nice.
leaving in
Okay.
the 2024 season.
Jeez. And so,
Gone.
and Oklahoma,
Pac-12 is dead.
Oklahoma and Texas, right? They're
SEC.
they're in the SEC
Yeah.
or going to the SEC. So does that leave room for the Big 12 and the Pac-12 to merge with what's left?
I don't know why. I mean, what is in the Big 12 that is anything decent, right?
Well, Baylor's coming around, right?
Yeah,
They've
but
had
you got to
good
talk
seasons.
money. It's more about talking
Yeah.
money.
All the money left the Big 12, and that's Texas. Texas was number 1, and Oklahoma was number 2.
Yeah.
And what do you got left? Nebraska's gone, and that's why I thought Nebraska's like, gee, you go in the Big 10. It's like I would not.
Well,
I
what
feel bad
happens?
for Colorado.
Yeah.
What happens to these leftover teams? Like, what are they going to do? What do we do with these teams?
They're going to
or
have to
what
join the Big 10 probably.
So it's going to be like the Big 20?
Yeah,
The Big 20.
it
Or
is.
the-
I'm pretty sure you're going to have the SEC with 20 schools, the Big 10 with 20 schools.
Right.
And that's going to be your 2 big conferences.
Yeah.
They're going to be 2 mega conferences, and that's it. You're going to get, Oregon, Washington, probably Colorado. I don't know about like maybe Arizona State, Stanford, but Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, Utah, they probably are going to be in a different conference.
I think the thing is I think everybody just wants an 18 to 12, 16 team playoff. And it's just another way to push that agenda. And everybody loves the bowls. That's great. But everyone's been trying to figure out how to push this playoff. And this is just another way to do that, and we'll see what happens. It's going to take a bit because nothing's going to happen the next 2 years at least.
Right.
They tried to push the 16 team thing. I thought it was a pretty good idea, and they shot it down. So that's put on hold for a couple more years.
And I'm telling you, Steve, you need to get your PS5 now, because next year,
God.
when NCAA football comes out, it will be the last year of the traditional conferences.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then I was thinking about this when we were you guys talking about this was earlier. Isn't it time to just start paying these kids to play? Having traditional playoff for them, flying around. Like, forget about these local schools playing against each other, right? Oregon State, have to be in the same conferences, and Washington State, take these big teams and put them in big conferences, fly them across the country if you have to. Who cares? Start paying them to do it, and because it's kind of going that way anyway, right? It's just a matter of time. It's all about money for them anyway.
Well, my problem is, or not like problem, but for them would be if I'm like, let's say, the quarterback from or CJ Stroud or is it Perry? Is that what his name is from? What's the Alabama quarterback?
That's Stroud, right?
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young.
Oh, Bryce Young. Yeah.
Stroud is Ohio State.
Yeah.
If I'm one of those guys they're obviously going to go 1-2 in the draft, right?
Yeah.
Do
Stroud
I want
will.
to risk the bowl season or whatever? I mean, for $100,000 when you're going to go and be the number 1 or 2 overall pick.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking $10
And then
million.
it's like the whole thing is they'll make you sign a contract, so you have to. So then I'd be weary of that.
That's why it would be awesome if.
But they take a risk every time they get on the field.
Well, I always look at Marcus Lattimore.
Yeah.
Running back, South Carolina. Number 1 running back in the nation his sophomore year. Easily going to be and then all of a sudden, boom, ACL, like injury, and then he never plays in the NFL. And so if I'm like a quarterback like that, I mean, what's even a point of playing next year?
Yeah, well, they have to play 10 games or regardless of whether it comes in the bowls, like they're still playing. They can, anytime they step on the field, any of their games, they could.
No, that's what I'm saying. Why they even play next year?
Yeah.
That brings up a whole other issue, which that's coming down the pipe.
Well,
like,
I mean,
okay, why am I playing? It's like,
think
okay,
about
well, if
Derek,
you're gonna do,
Derek Stingley Jr., Jamar Chase.
Here's the thing is, you might have a Stroud and a Bryce Young saying, why am I playing? I'm risking millions of dollars. I'm like, look, here's the thing why you're playing. You're also giving back to your university, your community, because you're bringing a hell of a lot of money to a lot of good causes. That's why you're playing. You're going to get your money. But at the same point, it kind of brings up another thing. Okay, why not just have a blind draft? Okay, you're a freshman. Okay, we'll give you your contract now. We'll give you a part of it now. We'll draft you now, but you're still playing in college for 2 years. That's what it's going to come down to. Because why would a dude play? I'm not going to play the national championship because I might hurt my knee. Sorry, guys. I'm going to take off. That's coming down.
Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
John Minchie. Both of them.
It's crap. I don't want to put that out there, but these players think now. Like, why would I risk,
Minchie, he went in the 4th round, so his stock.
Yeah. His stock.
Well, Jameson Williams is lucky. He still got drafted in the 1st round, but still, he should have been the first receiver taken.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and again, it doesn't have to be in a bowl game. It doesn't have to be a national championship game. It could be in week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, and I guess that's an issue with all college, right? And that's why NBA players wanted to skip college and go right to the NBA, and.
Well, it's kind of, I get it. I don't understand, for football, it's different unless you're like built like a LeBron James coming out of high school. It's hard. Look at Maurice Claret tried to do it, but he wasn't very good.
Right.
But basketball, yeah, why not? What is even the point of them going to college if they just want to go straight to the pros? Because they're not going to classes or anything. It's like,
Here you go.
Durant went to college for a year. He didn't do it. I get it. Like Carmelo won a championship, but yeah. Not many people go to college for a year and then win.
Well, it's like, why does the college football have to have rules? Why can't they go to, college just for a year and then go the NFL? So at least
that's a players union.
At least at least if you let the good players go when they want to go, yeah, you're going to lose some of your good players, but you're going to have more players that stay and get to play more, and you're going to have better games, and it's going to be more fun to watch. You're going to have a star that comes in and jumps right out fine, maybe not even make them go to college. Let them go to the NFL if they're that good,
That's why there's going to have to be a compromise. And, I understand the players' position because it's their livelihood. You got to, get hurt, you're not going to get paid. And the NCAA, of course, has their bottom line. Forget it. They don't want the NCAA to have any jurisdiction anymore. And they basically don't, because they're creating these super duper conferences. It's not even super conference anymore. You're going to have 20 teams in a conference. They're basically giving the middle finger to the NCAA. It's like, we don't need you guys anymore.
Yeah.
Which everybody's got to compromise. And there has to be some sort of solution, because it's going to F up college football if this continues.
Well, the thing is, though, these aren't NCAA rules why they have to stay.
Right.
This is governed by NFL. And that's why. It's the same as like the NBA, like they can go to the D League if they want instead of going to school.
The NCAA does have, here's the thing. These are NFL rules, but they're for the NCAA. They're for the colleges. They have a say in it. It might be all done behind the scenes, but it's to keep them in school, because these players bring in so much freaking money.
Well, actually, it's the players' union. The players' union doesn't want these young kids coming in and getting their money, because they want to take care of the veterans that are still on teams. And that's actually what it is. It's in the collective bargaining agreement that the players' union put in forth, because they didn't want the influx of younger players coming in taking jobs from the older.
Well, they're going to take them anyways.
Yeah, but that's like 2 or 3 years.
It's 2 years. It's 2 years later.
What is the average length of an NFL player? It's like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
a couple of years. But that's the players' union is a whole other monstrosity right there.
Don't let Zato hear that.
Yeah. It's just like my dad said. My dad said, "They all pay the same wage." Yeah. Okay.
The same wage.
Okay. Let's
So it is going to be interesting to see what happens here, with college football conferences, and like how this is going to shape out, because the SEC is already dominating. Now they're getting more teams, they're getting better teams.
Arch Manning,
yeah,
Texas.
It's just going to be.
That's funny.
Why do the other teams even play? It's like the SEC is just going to win.
Ohio State.
Dude, Ohio State's a beast. They have, and Day is a great coach, and he's a great recruiter, and he's not going anywhere. Ohio State, I think it's funny. I want to see USC go to fucking Big Ten and get their ass handed to them. I want to see it, because what's funny is Caleb, they got a great quarterback coming in. USC is going to be good next year just because of Caleb. He transfers over from Oklahoma, and USC should win that conference. I don't care how good. Oregon doesn't have that type of quarterback play that USC's getting. USC should win the conference. They should get to either the playoff or the Rose Bowl, because the dude's that talented. But he's going to be gone in 2 years. I don't know who their quarterback's going to be in 2 years when they go to the fucking Big Ten. But I guarantee you Ohio State has a machine, and it just produces the best receivers in college football and pretty darn good quarterbacks.
Well, didn't Marvin Harrison Jr. just commit to Ohio State?
I think so. I heard that. Oh no, I gotta look it up.
But he's ridiculous.
Are you going to say that Ohio State is wide receiver U now over Alabama
I
or
mean,
Clemson?
Well, we're no. We're talking about. We already established SEC is whether it's Georgia, whether it's Alabama. I mean, shit. LSU just won in 2020.
yeah.
With Joe
What about
Burrow.
Clemson wide receivers though.
Clemson's put some good guys out, but
But Ohio State, they just have a machine. They're producing really good receivers. They're going 3 deep, in the draft here. And
Yeah, well, we don't know how good they're going to be though.
yeah, we'll see.
They're good in college, and yeah, of course, when it comes to pros. But what's happening is Ohio State is just consistently winning, and if USC thinks they're just going to come in, fucking USC, like, good luck, dude.
Well,
They haven't been USC in years.
yeah, exactly. They're going to have trouble. I mean, UCLA is going to have the same problems.
Well,
UCLA
USC is
sucks.
going to be better this year, but like I said, you better be careful what you ask for. Because another reason why the Big Ten likes this idea, and USC and UCLA, they can't even fill the fucking Rose Bowl in the US in the Coliseum half the time. Do you think Michigan has problems filling up the big house? 105,000 people,
Right.
and those aren't the other teams' fans. There's no 30,000.
And they're going to travel. They're going to travel.
They're going to travel, and that's part of the whole thing. USC and UCLA are selling out because they can't even sell out the Rose Bowl, which is 100,000 people. They can't sell out the Coliseum. I mean, they basically cut off 20,000 of the seats and say, "Hey, we got to sell out." Okay, it's 75,000. Well, you can fit about 100,000 people. It happened in Super Bowl 7. They put about 95,000 people there, but you can't sell it out in your own city. You don't even have you didn't have a football team for years until the Rams came back. And every time you watch a Rose Bowl now, you're seeing, even when you have home teams playing in their own stadium, the Big Ten teams come in and they're basically have 50,000 people from the Midwest come out and travel. They're selling out.
That's just LA. I mean, the Chargers can't even, the Chargers aren't even playing home games.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. LA is the problem.
It's their front runners.
I think
If USC's good, they'll sell out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like neither of those teams, UCLA or USC, have been good lately. And so there's nobody really watching.
USC hasn't been good since Reggie Bush and Leinart. Is that
pretty
how
much? Pretty much.
Well,
I mean, they've had decent teams, but they haven't
They've never had dominant teams like that.
Yeah, not competing for national championships. That's
but
for sure.
Reggie Bush put people in the seats. I mean, that dude was
Yeah.
just amazing in college. I mean, it was just fun to watch. That was just a fun time. I mean, I got to admit, I'm not a big lover of USC, but that was freaking fun.
Oh,
that puts people in the seats.
That's what they had Matt Castle get drafted, and he never even played a snap in college.
You're right.
That's hilarious. How really?
And he was the best quarterback out of that group, actually, in the NFL.
Right. He played the best long term. Well, it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out and what happens with college football, because I don't know. They have to do something. Something has to change. Something has to happen, and maybe it is these two conferences becoming super conferences will make it more competitive. Maybe it makes it less competitive. We'll see how that plays out. So that'll be an interesting one to follow. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up here. For those of you watching, thanks for tuning in. Remember, you can see us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course on YouTube. If you like watching the video, we'll get that one posted for you. Any final thoughts as we wrap up here?
I do have one. I forgot to tell you guys. Have you seen Anthony Edwards throw a football?
That was awesome.
You saw it?
The basketball player?
Yes.
Yeah, dude.
It was like 70 yards on a dime.
No, I think it was 80.
Was it 80?
Watch it, and then someone told me, he's like, "Can you believe?" And someone told me it was somebody else. I go, no, that's Anthony Edwards, dude. I go, dude, that dude's a freaking. That dude's
Yeah, but isn't he like 6'7"?
It was
Boy,
6'8"?
Steve. You got to
6'6".
check it out. It was an amazing throw. It looked horrible, and then it was like, boom.
I
Like
mean, but
80 years
you
over.
got to think of guys with
Perfect.
those kind of wingspan, that tall, they're going to be able to throw a football really far.
But think about it. Has there ever been a football player that played basketball and kind of like Bo Jackson here?
Dual sport, yeah.
Dude, I think there's some teams in the NFL who are quarterback deficient,
Well,
including the fucking Seahawks.
you want
might want to look at that, dude. Let's give
you
them an
want to
open
see some
tryout,
good
man.
you want to see some good high school football highlights. Look at LeBron.
Oh, jeez.
I bet.
Oh, of course.
You imagine
Yes.
having a 6'7" tight end that runs like a 4.40.
Oh, he screwed that one up. So that's not happening. It's up to Anthony Edwards.
Final
And
thoughts.
my last thing is go out there and Google Jordan versus Bird, the video game. That's how good Bird was. They had to put a video game against him versus Jordan.
I
Yeah.
remember that.
No, and yeah, that's why I love that game. Play it all the time. Maybe that's why I got Bird in my top 5.
There you go.
So yeah, final thoughts. Everybody watching, you guys, have a safe holiday weekend. Don't blow any fingers or thumbs off, and have some good barbecue. And we'll see you guys next time.